I have to sometimes say that out loud so that I don't make a mistake, because I've known to make mistakes.
Talking to the animals. Weil du lernst ein bisschen, wie man mit Tieren spricht. Willst du das auch lernen?
Beate is excited, obviously, and talking to somebody else. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Talk to the Animals. I am so excited. We have very cool excitement here in all the different languages, and for all of you that are here online. First of all, just wanted to introduce, of course, Viv Adcock. Hello, Viv, where are you?
I can say g'day, I'm down under Australia.
So just to give you guys a little bit of background here, just for a moment. So Viv and I both are involved with Access Consciousness, which are the tools that we are using for this adventure with talking to animals, which really all got started with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, who started these tools like over almost 30 years ago now. And he, the first times when he started to do classes, people asked him, does this work with animals? And he always answers everything from energy. And he really didn't know at the time that these tools would work on animals, but he immediately answered yes. And he said, they do? So he was surprised by that, and it opened the door for him to really start looking at, okay, so what part of these Access Consciousness tools do work dynamically on animals, and what do they create for the animals? And so he started really very early on with Talk to the Animals as part of an Access Consciousness branch, I should say. And then him and Dane wrote the book Talk to the Animals, which has been out for quite a while. And so now, because he has so many other classes and everything that he is doing, he has basically given up doing these Talk to the Animal classes quite a while ago. And this is where Viv and I come in, because we have been probably the most persistent, I would say, in this particular endeavor. And we have just been plugging away, really bringing these tools that are not just the ones that are in Talk to the Animals, but really beyond Talk to the Animals book out into the world, and just creating some more ease for people to really have the capacity to have a different point of view with animals, because that is really truly what has always been so fascinating for me with these tools, is that they are very different in their approach to, you know, to other modalities. Like I have actually personally taken a lot of Talk to the Animals classes that weren't called that way, but they were animal communication classes. And there was oftentimes like a lot of significance placed on a lot of things. And the approach that Access has is to really truly not have significance on some of these things, but being really real and straightforward with the animals. So that's just my little introduction that I wanted to throw in. So Viv, do you want to say something or add something? Or I mean, we're going to talk here back and forth. So I just wanted to start with that.
Yeah, sure. I remember as a kid watching Dr. Dolittle, like I'm talking, I was probably 6 or 7, and just something pinged in my world, something really lit up for me. And I went, oh, what animals could I talk to? What conversations? What would they say? And so my family were weird. They didn't have animals. They didn't think that having animals was a good thing. So I grew up quite starved, I guess, in a way, but I'd always have the neighbour's dog, or I'd always create somebody's horse to ride, or I remember my sister brought home pet mice from school, which got out, and that definitely sealed mum and dad's point of view about, you know, animals are not supposed to be in the house. So but I still managed to create this connection with animals somehow, whether it was the neighbours, and they they touch a different part to us. They open us up to receive in a totally different way, I found. Than I got more from them than I did with people. And I find a lot of the people that come to classes, they feel it's a lot easier for them to be themselves around animals and to actually have the, I suppose you could call it the bond or the connection that they would like to have maybe with people, but they find they can't have it with people. So for me, animals are an amazing facilitator with just accessing that part of you that may not normally every day get exercised, if you like. And for me, when I read the Talk to the Animals book, it was, yes, this is what I've always known could be possible. And so then, you know, I started using them even with dogs on the street sitting with their owners at the cafe, and they'd start to respond to me. I'm like, oh, maybe I could be Dr. Dolittle. And that was where my fascination with this journey started. And I love the word you use, Suzy, adventure, because it is an adventure. They are such characters. And when you have this communication with them, you get to know them. They are such an individual character and an individual personality, and they just make me laugh. Some of the things that they say and how they facilitate is just such a gift. So that's my journey so far.
I love that. And it's just like, it's an ongoing journey for me also. Like, it never stops, in a sense that I'm always surprised when I ask a question, when I work with somebody, or even in the classes sometimes, the things that show up and that actually are available to us to really perceive and know with these animals are incredible. And it's so interesting because, again, I have worked with other modalities, and the oftentimes, like, you know, animals are seen, oh, they are like these wonderful beings that know more than we do. And it's like, true, do they really know more than we do? Like, what else is really possible here with the communication that really acknowledges everyone for who they are? You know, is there wisdom that animals can have? Absolutely. Is there wisdom that I can have? Absolutely. You know, is there wisdom in everybody? Yes. So it's not about making the animals greater than us, but it's also no longer making them less than us either, because that is the other part, is so much in this reality is about animals being not even second-class citizens, but no citizens whatsoever. You know, they are basically objects a lot of times. And that's the part that I personally would like to change in this world. I personally would like to make sure that we are starting to really regard animals with respect, and with the respect that they deserve. And it's not about, you know, all of us having to be vegetarians to make this a better world. It is more about really acknowledging what is required. What are the animals asking for? What if we truly started a conversation with animals, even the ones that go to slaughter? What if we truly had a conversation with them? What would that create in the world? So not coming to the conclusion that the world has to, you know, become this in order for that, but really more like remaining in the question. And that is truly what I love about these tools, is that they keep us in the question. They keep us on our toes in that way, because every time we come to a conclusion, the first ones that let us know about it are the animals, actually. You know, I don't know if you guys have horses or have been around horses. They, to me, are the best example for that, because whenever you have a conclusion around a horse, you're not going to get very far. It might be a little bit easier or more forgiving when you have a dog or a cat. Not with the horse.
Yeah, and I love that, Suzy. It's, for me, when I first came into all the animal stuff, it was like, oh, I've got to love them all, and I've got to protect them all, and I've got to fight for them. And, you know, I came in from that aspect thinking animal cruelty and it's wrong, and I didn't feel that I was able to make the change that I wanted to in my side. It made me sadder and got me more involved and more upset and more having more points of view, rather than, hang on, where is this relationship with the animals for me? Where has it gone? And so I started taking on injured animals, and then greyhounds from the racing industry. And we know that from, you know, that perspective, that people have a lot of points of view about whether it's good or bad or right or wrong or it's cruel or whatever. And they facilitated me to see that, you know what, they don't have a point of view. It might not be the best quality of life, but they showed me how to be interesting point of view and to have no point of view. But for the journey with them that they come through, some of them are very traumatized, some of them are very fearful of people and so adrenalized that you cannot get a connection with them for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 5 months, however long it takes. And so they facilitated me to just let go of any fixed points of view I thought about how it should be and how I should be with animals. And I totally relaxed into that and allowed them to show me the way. And it just opened up a whole different way how they function with their situation. And to be able to make a difference for the animal kingdom, but in a different way, by not having all my emotions pouring into them and actually making the situation worse. I've always desired to empower people, and I went, well, why would I feel that being sorry for these animals or trying to protect them or fight for them is actually empowering them? It's not. It's making me upset, and it's not actually facilitating them. So I went on a bit of a journey myself to realize, okay, I have to change my point of view to actually be what I desire to be for these animals, whether they're injured or they're in a zoo or whether they're out free range. So they're just the most incredible facilitators, and horses, absolutely. They are just such a gift when it comes to anything that you're walking around with that you might not know about, or anything that you're presenting with energetically. You know, a fear of horses, if you have a fear of horses, they'll dynamically show you that within the first few minutes of your exchange with them. And I'm just going to jump to a class that you and I facilitated in Australia a number of years ago. This lady came to the class and she was terrified. I think it was a conscious horse, conscious rider class that we were facilitating, and she was terrified of horses. And I was so impressed that she made that commitment to herself for 2.5 days to come to a class, even though she was terrified. She stood behind the fence for the first half of the first day, and then she slowly came out, and we had this big arena with about 15 horses in that were used for disabled people. They were kind of riding for the disabled, and they were working with children that had, anger issues and this type of thing. And this massive Shire horse walked over towards her, and he was this gentle giant. And I've still got photographs of her now. It still makes me cry to see the gentleness that this horse approached her with. She was terrified, and within half an hour she had her hands on this horse, and within about an hour she's got her full body connecting on the horse. And it was just, she was changed and transformed within those first few hours of the class. And this is a woman who was terrified. So there were no words exchanged. There's such a dynamic conversation that goes on that is unspoken. So that was really powerful for me to see that, because so many people are frightened of horses. So how does it get better than that?
How does it?
Can I say something? I think I got a bad connection. Yeah, it's like okay. Well, anyways, when I was in college, I did a class, and I did a paper, and the paper was about how animals can speak to you, and I used as argument for my paper, I used that gorillas can be taught sign language. And the professor herself said it was a language, okay? So I actually used her own words against her. she was trying to get us to prove that animals that humans were the only ones that could communicate, that animals couldn't communicate. She tried to force us to write a paper I didn't want to write. And so we're critiquing each other's paper, and the guy comes up long before Access with the title, Talking with the Animals. That was long before Access, long before I knew about that book, and I also have that book. This book came to me through my granddaughter, and it's called The Chihuahua Always Sniffs Twice, and it's a barking detective mystery. Now, I thought that was interesting. So when I saw this, I said, I'm going to be on that call. I love animals. And yes, and she fixed it where she could I couldn't get more than a B on that paper. That was an A paper. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel. I like that. And, you know, and again, like, it's so true that in this reality, we are often asked or forced to believe that animals are less than us and that we are the better species on the planet, because actually one of the things that is being really oftentimes seen as the valuable product in this reality is that we have judgment. And animals don't have judgment. So we're seeing as the better species because we actually have the capacity to judge, which I find so interesting, because with the tools in Access Consciousness, this is one of the things that we are really working with a lot, is to come out of judgment, to really truly no longer function from that space of judgment, from that space of conclusion, from that space of I know what is right. But really being more in the question and allowing ourselves to ask questions also with animals and around animals in particular. And, you know, really looking at, okay, so how can animals be a contribution here in this particular situation? Or what is going on here? How can we assist an animal? But really truly starting to listen to what animals might have to say. And it's really interesting, like, a few months ago, I was bold enough to post on Facebook that I was going to do a Facebook Live with this horse that had died during the Australia Cup. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to just talk to this dead horse. Well, OMG, the whole post went viral, and like I had so many people vilify me, like literally, well, who do you think you are? Like, are you on crack cocaine? Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you nuts? You're going to talk to a dead horse? Who gives you the right to talk to a dead horse? You must be nuts and crackers. I mean, it was just like honestly, like thousands of comments like that were just basically saying, who the fuck are you and who gives you the right, first of all, to talk to this horse? And like, what are you even saying you can talk to a dead horse? Are you like out of your mind? And it was really interesting to me to see how we are so scared that this horse might tell us something. That this horse might say, oh, you know what, the racing industry for shit, and we shouldn't do this. You know, this is a cruel and unusual way to have horses. Or, you know, that was really what this was based upon for me. It was all the fear that we have about what are we doing in this reality with animals? And if they were actually telling us, would they tell us to go and fuck off, you know? And that to me was more the energy than anything else. And so like, but what if we truly were willing to hear everything that animals have to say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and not come to a conclusion about, oh, you know, it must be bad that we're racing horses. Well, that's also a conclusion. What if we could ask the horse, hey, would you like to be a racehorse? Do you like the way racing is done? Are there other ways that we could do horse racing in this world? Are there other ways that we could treat you? Are there other ways that we could house you? Are there ways that you would like better than others? And not even to come to conclusion with that either. Oh, this is the perfect way to work with horses, or this is the perfect way that a stall should look like, or this is the perfect way that you have your horse at home, but really asking the individual. I have met horses that really don't like to be in a stall. They like to be outdoors. They like to run around. And I've met horses that are totally content and happy to be in a stall. So what if we didn't come to conclusions about these things, but what if we really allowed the conversation to take place and the possibility to really have communication with these animals? And that's really what this is about, is to open the door to receiving the communication, receiving what these animals have to share, and to give us a different way of being with them, without the conclusions, without the decisions, and without the judgments.
Concept when I first came up, the concept of allowance, of I'd never heard that term, allowance, to be an allowance of something. Allowance was something I was given by my dad as a child, you know, your pocket money type thing, whereas no, allowance is where you don't have a point of view and you're not trying to fight for the rightness of what you've been taught or what you've just taken on without questioning anything about animals, whether it's wild animals or whether it's domestic animals. So when you have that level of allowance, you perceive things differently. There's no filter that it needs to get through. There's no fixed points of view that has to come up against. So being around the animals, ironically, this is where I started to realize, wow, I do have a level of allowance, because I just allow the animal to be what they are without pushing and forcing and projecting and trying to make something happen. And that was totally different to how I was in my human life, if you like, because in my human life, I was pushing and forcing and fighting all the time and defending. And that was how I'd learned to grow up, that if I wanted to have anything or create anything, I had to force and fight and push my way through and not give up. And yet with animals, that didn't get me anywhere. So I had to really, it was a massive internal transition for me to allow myself to just walk in there as a blank page without any preconceived ideas and just be, which is quite frightening to start with, you know, when you've come from that place of I've got to get it right and I have to achieve this and it has to look a certain way and I've got to accomplish this. And again, with the horses, you go into a paddock or a round yard or a stable with that point of view and they'll show you straight away. And the other thing too I wanted to mention was, you know, quite a few people come to classes that actually don't have animals. But I'll talk to, you know, we talk to the ants. We get, in summertime, we often have a lot of ant plagues, if you like. When it's about to rain, the ants get really busy because they know the rain's coming. They tell you what's happening with the weather. So I keep an eye on how many trains of ants are walking up the wall. And I'm like, okay, how long till the rain comes? And the snakes, because we have snakes in Australia, it's like, okay, all those thousands of acres out there are yours. This little patch here, this acre, is mine. Please stay outside of these, you know. And so it's not just with domestic animals, but Suzy, I know you've done a class in a zoo too. How was that?
It was really amazing in so many ways, because the thing that was really interesting to all of us was also how different it is to communicate with an elephant versus a group of monkeys versus a bird versus, you know, other animals in the zoo. That really truly perceiving the difference, also how do these animals connect with us, you know. And what was really interesting was that the elephants were really excited to communicate with us. And it was in the zoo in Japan where there were tons of people and all the elephants stood right in front of our little group, whereas the entire fence had people lined, and they just all came and they all looked at us, like, and they all stared at us, you know. And it floored the participants, because they were like, you know, after 2 days of being in an animal communication class, you're still a little bit like, yeah, maybe I'm making this up in my head. well, there was no more making up in your head when you stood there and all these elephants were staring at you. And it was so clear. And then when we were basically done with the communication, they all wandered off. And that to the group was really fun to be aware of. And then we walked over to like a group of these monkeys that were having a good time, and they didn't even care that we were there. And so that was fun too. They were still communicating with us, but they didn't pay attention to us. And so just really seeing all these different ways that individuals communicate, just like people too. You know, there are people that like to talk a lot, other people are more quiet. And the same true for animals as a group, but also as individuals. And so it's just really, like, you may think that, oh, in these 2 days, for example, that a class, like the basic class that we teach is in either 2 days, or it's a telecall, an 8-part telecall, and basically the same curriculum gets covered in these. And you might think that it's not enough to really kind of get a sense, but it's amazing to me how quickly people actually realize that they have been communicating their whole lives. And that's the other part too, is we all speak the language of energy. We all do. And this is really to get you to acknowledge that you not only have done this your whole life, but you're still doing it. And then to hone some refinements and some skills. But in essence, just really truly the acknowledgement that you can, and you always have.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major concerns people come to the class with. It's like, what if I can't get it? What if I can't do it? And I look at, we've got how many, 80 odd people online now. If you have the desire to hop on a Zoom with Suzy and I, you already have this capacity. You've already got it. You have the desire, you have the curiosity, you're already in the question. So, that's a huge leg up to start with, because you've already got the awareness that it's possible. Even if you might not have all of the tools, or like Suzy said, even if it's not so honed or fine-tuned, you still have that capacity. So would you please be willing to acknowledge right now that, yeah, I can do this. What if I am already doing this? And start to observe where animals do look at you, or they do give you that acknowledgement that they are connecting. And what you were saying about the elephant, Suzy, when an animal, this is just my experience, when an animal is actually received, it's almost like a relief in their world. It's like, oh God, I thought all of you two-legged people were deaf and dumb and mute, but you're not, some of you. And for them to be received, it's, imagine you never being heard. And you're talking all day long, and it's like nobody's even acknowledging you. And then when somebody finally reaches you, it's like, oh, well, I've got this to say, and I want to show you this, and can I show you this, and can I expand this awareness for you? And they contribute so much once they realize that door is open. So that also, for them to be received, also allows you to receive more. So it's this beautiful gifting and receiving, and this simultaneous I suppose, growth in a way, and this expansion of your awareness of what else is truly possible, not just with animals, but then you can have it with plants, and then you can have it with the earth, and you can have it with your body, and wherever. There's no limit as to where you can take that. So they're such a gift. They are such a gift.
I love the way you said that, Viv. That was really beautiful. Yes, so for me personally, this whole Zoom was really not so much about going into individual questions that you might have about animal communication, but really kind of get you more of a sense and a little taste of us and of these tools. We are currently working to get this program out there more. We have a few people that can do some of these classes already. We have some intro facilitators. We're working on getting more out there in the world. This is really exciting. And Viv and I also just created the advanced program, and we are excited to co-facilitate that for the first time this year. It's most likely going to be in Europe that we're doing it for the first time, but we don't have the dates yet. We're still working on these little details. So stay tuned for all of this, please. And if you would like to have more of this, please, like Viv said, find us or find the facilitators or the inter-facilitators in your region and just have another little taste of this, and just really, yeah, get a sense of these tools and what they can do for you, and really kind of what else is possible in this realm. So I just basically, we just really wanted to introduce you a little bit to us and to this endeavor. So with this being said, I am sort of like happy with what we've talked about so far, and I'm excited for all of you having been here and being here and your presence, and really, really excited that you guys are interested in this topic and that you would like to have more exposure to this. So what else is truly possible? And like Viv was saying so beautifully, please acknowledge that you are here and you have already a capacity in that direction. And so even if you never to come to a course, what if you started to really truly acknowledge that you can also be the mouthpiece for animals, that you can be that support that they have been asking for, that you can be the one that hears them, and that you can truly create a different reality around all of this. So if you were to really truly acknowledge that for yourself, what else could you create in the world?
Hey, Suzy, I just wanted to say one more thing. I took Hans de Gaard's class in 2015, Conscious Horse, Conscious Riders, and it was phenomenal. And I've been wanting to get to your class, and I will get to your class.
That sounds wonderful. Yes, Hannes de Gaard does Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, which is another specialty class from Access Consciousness, Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, more focused on horses, of course, and also phenomenal place to play. So yes, it's always fun to kind of explore what else is out there, what else is speaking to you, what do you want to dive into, you know. So thanks for mentioning that too.
How does it get better? And we've just had a suggestion from Joan in Boulder, Colorado, saying, you might see it, Suzy, about contacting the Irwin family. So for any of you that know or knew of Steve Irwin, who was Crikey, the Australian, I suppose in a way he was an icon for animal conservation and forestry and land conservation, who died a number of years ago. Ironically, he got stung by a stingray through his heart and died, which is quite ironic in itself. But yeah, what she just suggested, what if you contact the Irwin family, and what would be possible at the Australia Zoo, which is a massive, massive tourist attraction in Australia, with lots of different animals from different countries and continents and backgrounds. And yeah, that's a great idea. So what else is possible? And Suzy and I talk about, you know, there's so many different venues and places that these classes can take place. So who out there would like to play? Where would we like to go? Where would the animals like us to be? So I've thoroughly enjoyed this morning, Suzy, or this afternoon with you. You can see the sunshine starting to come up. And thank you to everybody online.
Yes, thank you everybody, and we're looking forward to connecting with you again. And if you signed up for this, we will send you the replay of this as well, so you can watch it, you can share it. Please share it also in your language if you like. We're happy to, like we said, we're happy that you're here, and thank you again for coming today, for being here, for your contribution. And we really hope to see you sometime soon in person somewhere.
There's lots on offer. Suzy, do you still have your Blog Talk Radio going?
No, I am no longer doing that. I do Facebook Lives with Charlie now, and but they're very sporadic, so not as once a week as I used to be. So, what else is possible?
What else is possible? Okay, great. We'll see you in Europe.
Yay! Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.